In the 1820s, thousands of immigrants moved to Texas. They brought with them customs and ways of life that were not like the Tejano way of life. These customs and beliefs caused conflicts with the Mexican government. Texans and Mexicans did not see eye to eye. Language barriers and freedom of religion were just some of the problems Texans faced. On April 6, 1830, a law was passed to stop settlers from settling in Texas. This angered many settlers who wanted to bring their families with them. This was the last straw. The Texans wanted their freedom back. The dictator, Santa Anna, had to be stopped. The revolution would soon begin.
Welcome, audience, to our 4th grade Texas Revolution reenactment.
It all begins on a crisp autumn day, year 1835, October 2nd. Mexican Colonel Domingo Yucateche decides to seize a cannon with a force of 4 men from his army.
Colonel Yucateche is so frustrated and mad, he decides to send Lieutenant Castaneda with 100 men.
The Texan army, led by Colonel John H. Moore and his volunteer soldiers, decide to move the cannon from the peach orchard to proudly show it off to their enemy.
This shot caused Mexican soldiers to retreat with 1 death. Texans lost no casualties. Ladies and gentlemen, the Texas Revolution has begun.
On October 11, 1835, Stephen F. Austin was elected commander of the Army of Texas. Austin wanted to take the Texas capital, San Antonio, and drive the Mexican military out of Texas.
He took his 300 men and began his approach north towards San Antonio, sending out scouts before each move and trying to ensure that his volunteers would not be caught by surprise.
They stopped at a place near a large bend of river west of Mission Concepcion. Because of the lateness in the day, Bowie decided to camp there for the night. The morning of October 28, 1835, the countryside was wrapped in fog. Even though they could not see well, General Coss decided to move in on the Texan army before they could be reinforced. He sent out about 400 men and 2 cannons. Mexican soldiers approached from the south and east. The Texans crouched below the protection of the river bank, which formed a natural trench.
Sharpshooters with the Texas long rifles focused their attention on the gunners and quickly silenced the Mexican army. The Mexicans began to fall back. Taking advantage of this retreat, Bowie led charge towards the Mexican army and was soon able to turn one of their own cannons against them. The battle soon ended and only 1 Texan had been killed. Many Mexican soldiers were killed in the battle. The Texans had been outnumbered roughly 3-1, and the battle had still been won by a smaller force.
On February 23, 1836, Santa Anna marched to San Antonio accompanied by 6,000 Mexican soldiers. He wanted the Texans to surrender the Alamo to the Mexican government. Meanwhile, at the Alamo, about 200 Texan troops and their families lived together and defended the fort. They were led by James Bowie, William Barrett Travis, and David Crockett. James Bowie was a frontiersman from Louisiana, William B. Travis was a young attorney from Alabama, and David Crockett came from Tennessee with 12 volunteers to assist in fighting for Texas independence. All three gentlemen refused to relinquish control of the Alamo.
William B. Travis became the leader of the Texans when James Bowie suddenly became ill with pneumonia. Travis vowed to never surrender the Alamo. He would rather die than give up. He enlisted the help of all willing and able Texas men. "12 days later, at dawn on March 6, the Mexican army attacked the Alamo from all four sides. The Mexican soldiers breached the walls using ladders they had built. They ambushed the Texans inside the walls of the Alamo. There were 20 cannons, the most in Texas, to be used as protection. During the battle, the Mexican troops turned the Texans' cannons on them.
After the 90-minute fight, nearly all the Texan soldiers were dead, including William B. Travis, James Bowie, and David Crockett. However, the few Alamo defenders managed to kill over 600 Mexican soldiers. This was a victory in itself.
Santa Anna decided to let some women and children and slaves go free. This small act of mercy allowed Susanna Dickinson to escape. She was sent to find Sam Houston and Gonzalez and deliver a message of warning.
On March 12, 1836, Susanna Dickinson was released from the Alamo shortly after the battle. Susanna ran to Gonzales to alert the Texans about what had happened a few days before in San Antonio. She cried to Sam Houston and warned the Texan settlers about the gigantic Mexican army nearby and what would happen to them if they stayed in Gonzales. The settlers packed their belongings and fled to the east. 400 Texan soldiers led by Colonel James Fannin retreated to Victoria under the orders of Sam Houston. Houston believed that the city was under attack by the Mexican army. Along the way, near Goliad, Fannin and his troops ran into a group of Mexican soldiers led by General Jose Urrea. The Texans surrendered because they were outnumbered by the enemy and out of food and ammunition. Fannin and his men were taken captive and held as prisoners in Goliad. The Texans were treated very poorly while in the Goliad prison. While they were in jail, Francisca Alvarez, a young Mexican woman, helped and saved several Texan soldiers from the harsh conditions. She became known as the Angel of Goliad. Santa Anna ordered that the inmates were to be treated like pirates for taking up arms against Mexico. He commanded that they be killed. General Urrea argued to save the Texans, but later obeyed Santa Anna's orders. At sunrise on March 27, 1836, Fannin and his troops were to be escorted out of the city, lined up, and shot without compassion. The Mexican soldier did not comply. All of the Texas army that was seized were killed that day. This cruel act is known as the Goliad Massacre.
The Battle of San Jacinto was on April 21, 1836, in present-day Harris County, Texas. It would be the deciding battle of the Texas Revolution. The Texas troops were led by Sam Houston. The fight lasted only 18 minutes. The Texas troops captured the Mexican leader, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. This would be the final blow for Mexico and spell victory for Texas.
After realizing his men were going to lose the Battle of San Jacinto, General Santa Anna dressed as a common soldier and fled into the wilderness. On the day following the battle, a small party discovered Santa Anna and brought him into camp. As part of his surrender agreement, the general was told to order the Mexican troops remaining in Texas immediately to retreat to south of the Rio Grande. On May 14, 1836, the treaties of Velasco were signed by Presidents David G. Burnett and Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. They confirmed the Mexican retreat and declared an end to the war.
The Mexican government never accepted the treaties, however stating Santa Anna was a prisoner of war and therefore forced to sign the treaty. A state of war existed throughout most of the Republic of Texas' existence.
Through courage and sacrifice, Texans gained their freedom from the Mexican government. Even today, when we look back over time, we must think to remember the Alamo and remember Goliad. Thank you.